Why do other countries observe U.S. sanctions even though they oppose them? Because they're afraid of the United States. It's a frightening country. Europe opposes the sanctions. It opposes the Iran sanctions vigorously, but it has to go along because you can't step on toes of the United States. It's dangerous. In fact, the United States has the capacity to throw countries out of the international financial system, which mostly runs through New York, and can carry out other measures. Nobody's willing to face that. So countries can't provide, say, Sweden, medical equipment to Cuba. They can't sell something that uses nickel that they imported from Cuba. What's the reason for this? Well, one of the good things about the United States is it's quite an open society, much more so than others. We have a lot of information about what our government is doing. Not perfect, but a lot. A lot of material gets declassified, unlike other countries. That's a very good thing. So we can look back to the records of the Kennedy and Johnson administration in the 1960s and ask, why the torture of Cuba? And it is torture. Well, the reason is, I'm quoting, successful defiance of U.S. policies going back to the 1820s, to the Monroe Doctrine, which established the U.S. right to dominate the hemisphere, to turn the hemisphere into a sphere of influence, as it's called, for the United States. Well, back in the 1820s, the United States wasn't powerful enough to implement it. Britain was much more powerful and impeded the U.S. But over time, as predicted by U.S. leaders, John Quincy Adams, others, British power waned, American power increased, and finally the U.S. was able to impose the Monroe Doctrine. Cuba was acting in successful defiance of U.S. demand to dominate the hemisphere and to determine what happens here. So we have to torture them, make them suffer bitterly and brutally. And Europe joins in, the whole world joins in, because they're afraid of the United States. Well, that's sanctions. Same with the sanctions on Iran. There was an agreement, JCPOA, the Joint Agreement on Nuclear Weapons, signed under the Obama administration, 2015. Iran lived up to it completely. U.S. intelligence confirms that Iran completely lived up to the agreement. It sharply limited Iran's capacity to develop nuclear systems. Whether they intended to develop nuclear weapons, we don't know. They said they weren't. Maybe they were. But anyway, this limited it. President Trump dismantled it, tore it to shreds, violating Security Council orders. Security Council had ordered that all countries maintain the JCPOA. Trump decided, I don't like it, I'm going to tear it apart. So he destroyed it. And then he punished Iran for the U.S. violation of Security Council orders by imposing harsh sanctions on Iran. Europe bitterly opposed that, but they have to conform for the reasons I mentioned. That's maintained. It's now maintained by the Biden administration. There is a chance that we might be able to restore the agreement. Tricky thing.